Hi there, this is Jana Basto with ProdPad, and I'm going to walk you through how to use ProdPad today. So one of the most important things about ProdPad is that it's not just a tool for the product managers, it's actually a tool that the rest of the team can use as well. And that's because it's not the job of the product manager to have all the answers. It's our job to ask the best questions and to surround ourselves with the feedback and the insights from all the people around us. And so we make it really easy to connect ProdPad to all the different tools that our team already uses. Like, for example, you can take advantage of the Slack integration that we have so that people can log into ProdPad using Slack. They can sync their ideas and pull them in directly from Slack. If they are having a conversation in Slack, their conversations can be synced directly with the threads. They can vote on ideas directly from Slack. If they have an idea and they happen to be on the go, they can email their ideas in. They can use things like the Chrome extension, or they can even use things like our branded customer feedback portal, where you can allow your customers to drop their feedback and even see ideas from your own backlog and tell you which ideas that they'd like to see. Now, once all these ideas and all this feedback and all these insights are in ProdPad, we give you, the product managers, all the tools you need to keep on top of it and to make the decisions on which of those ideas are actually the right ones that deserve to go on the roadmap and which ideas deserve to go forward to development to your tools like Jira or Trello or Azure DevOps or whatever your dev team is using. And of course, which ideas aren't good ideas and therefore deserve to be archived and put aside. Now, before I dive into that nitty-gritty, let me show you how we structure a product portfolio within ProdPad and therefore how you can set up your own portfolio here. Now, within ProdPad, you can manage as many products as you like. So as you can see, I've got a lot of products in here and they're grouped within different product lines. Each product has what we call a canvas, its own objectives and key results, a roadmap, documentation, and so forth. And these roll up into the product line level as well as at the portfolio level as well. So you've got multiple levels that you can manage your products at. Today I'm going to focus on an individual product. So the product canvas is essentially a one-pager that outlines the most important stuff about your product, like what is the product vision? What is the strategy and what's the description? How should you be talking about this product? And what's the value of your product? Why does it exist? This is a page that you can share with your team to bring them in here, or you can publish this. You can turn it into a one-pager that you can print out and get stuck on the walls around people's workspaces around the office to make sure that everyone knows where it is that you're going with the product. This in turn connects to your objectives and key results section. Objectives are high-level goals that help give your team an idea as to how they're being measured on how your product is being measured for success. You can have these at the product level or at the portfolio level. So at the portfolio level, you might have things like user growth and revenue. At the product level, this might depend, but you might have things like usability and engagement or onboarding. Really unique thing about ProdPad is that the key results, which are the specific and measurable metrics that you track against each of these objectives, you can have as many key results as you like. So we've got a few examples here. Each of these key results, in turn, are connected to the roadmap cards that you bet are going to make a difference, that you bet are going to impact these key results. So you're not just saying that you're going to, in this example, that you want to see engagement improve and that you want to increase the views of a property list page by 20%. You're actually saying, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to try this. Can we reduce friction by providing users more login options? And can we reduce customer misunderstandings? Here's a couple things that we're doing now. Here's a couple of things that we've got lined up for next. And according to this, our status tracker, we're on track. And I can actually change this really quickly if I wanted to. I can say it's at risk if this changes. And I can see a history of where that's gone, both at the individual key result level, as well as at the entire objective level. Now, these key results and these objectives in turn are linked through to the roadmap. And the roadmap is broken down into these three columns, or what we call time horizons. They're labeled now, next, and later, but you can rename these. Now, each of the cards underneath are what we consider roadmap initiatives. I like to think of them as problems to be solved. Now, if I just collapse this down, it gives you a better view because these are problems to be solved and you can easily move these around if things change, as we know that they do. And what this is allowing you to do is say, here's what we think are the big problems right now, and later on, here are the problems that are on the horizon. So quite naturally, the stuff that's much further down on the horizon tends to have less detail. You tend to have fewer ideas and less detail associated with things in the later column, but they're things that you want your team to have an idea as to what these problems are and to keep an eye on them. Whereas the things in the now column tend to be much more granular, because these are the things that are keeping your team busy right now. So if I dive into these in much more detail, you can see that we've got a scope and an understanding as to what the problem actually is. We've labeled it with the objective, so the reason why we're doing it. And I've also connected it to different ideas. And I don't see ideas on the roadmap as a list of things to go do, because I don't think that's what a roadmap is for. What I see these as are experiments, things that we might try in order to solve this problem. So if we've got this problem, then we might try this, then this, then this, then this, and work our way through. If we get partway through and we've solved the problem, then we can stop working on the problem. We can move on to the next thing, which is great. If we get all the way through and it turns out that we haven't solved the problem, then it doesn't mean that we magically move on to the next thing in the list. It means that we go back in here and maybe come up with new ideas as to how we might actually go about solving that problem before we just move on to the next thing. So at this, what we're actually doing here is making sure that we are keeping in mind the problems that we want to solve first, and the experiments that we think we could run to solve each problem second. Now, where we see this workflow, these are all completely customizable steps, but these are the ones that I've configured in this ProdPad. These are actually synced with development tools. Now, this is a demo environment, so these might be synced with things like Jira or Azure DevOps or Trello. Basically, what's happening is ideas start off in ProdPad as ideas, things that you might do. People in ProdPad, your design team, your product team, other people who pitch in to help turn an idea from an initial spark into a more ready-to-go, spec'd, approved idea, move it through various stages. You might have things like initial review, discovery, design, and then it's pushed to development. And once it's actually been pushed to development, that development tool takes over and it syncs. We've got a two-way sync, so it pulls it across and updates in here automatically. So at this level, you can see what the problem is, why you're trying to solve it, what it's going to do for the business, what you're actually doing to try to solve that, the things that you're going to try, the experiments you're going to run, and how you're actually progressing with those. Like here's an experiment that we actually tried and it's successful, which is great. And so I can actually use this roadmap card to tell me quite a lot of information. There's a couple other areas in the roadmap that are really helpful. One is the candidate card section. Think of this as like your draft board for your roadmap. Sometimes it's helpful to have an area where your roadmap cards might need to come over if they break apart. Sometimes you've got V2s or other areas where your roadmap cards become a bit unruly and you want to split them apart and bring them over here while you figure out whether they're ever going to go back onto the roadmap. So it's useful for that sort of thing, but also for new problems that creep up that you're not sure as to where they sit on the roadmap yet. Like, for example, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, our conversion rate has just jumped up. What's going on here? You would identify this as a new problem. So candidate cards are like problems looking for solutions. So here's this new problem. We'll log it as a candidate card. And if I open this up, I could actually brainstorm with my team a number of potential solutions, potential experiments we might run. So perhaps we want to reduce the page load time. Maybe that's one experiment we could run. Maybe we want to put it in an embeddable form. Maybe that'll fix it. Maybe we just simply lower our prices. Maybe that's the first experiment we run. These are all things that we could do, and I could come up with some new idea on the fly and add it to the card. And once this is ready, I could take this, and if I wanted to move this to the roadmap, I could simply just drag it over and it becomes part of the plan. The other key section of your roadmap is the completed section, because a habit that I see a lot of teams having is that they will finish off some initiative. And so they'll go into Jira or whatever they're using for dev, and they will close all the tickets there. They'll wipe down their whiteboards, they'll crumple up all their post-it notes, and they'll move on to the next thing, which is really good for keeping up an agile cadence, but really bad for making sure that they've actually solved a problem. So next time, instead of just deleting this work and moving on to the next thing, actually just mark it as completed. And you can do that really simply. You can actually just drag it over to this completed section, which lives over on this side of your roadmap. So I've completed it. There we go. It's giving me a little confetti shower there. And you can see that it's completed. I can mark when it was completed. Let's say we launched this on Monday, so I can mark that. This is pre-filled from the last time I was here, so I'll just remove that. There we go. And now I can outline the outcome of it. And let's say I'm taking a look at the data. I can see that user growth has gone up by 10%. Great. And now I can come back and check this next month. I'm going to make a note to come back and check these regularly. And I can go in and see my completed cards, which all live here now. So I can see the things that I completed recently, 3 to 6 months ago, and beyond that. So I've got this running list of all the problems that me and the product team have actually solved, and what sort of things we ran into along the way. And this is good for tracking things that did work, right? Things that were successful, as well as things that didn't work. Because what you don't want to do is brush things that didn't work under the carpet and lose those learnings, right? Here's a project that didn't work out the way we wanted it to. And I can see in here some ideas that were actually failed experiments, right? Rather than losing this work here, I can actually just archive, I can archive these, but keep a record of what happened and what we decided to do instead. Now, this roadmap is a view that you as product people are likely to spend a lot of time in. You can look at this in a lot of different ways. This is my super detailed view. You've got lots of ways of configuring what you see in here. You can filter this down. You can cut this up in a lot of different ways. And you can view this at the individual product level, at the product line level, or even at the whole portfolio level as well. I'm not going to go into all that, but I will show you how to create versions of this roadmap for various stakeholders. So I'm going to go into my roadmap publishing area and show you some of the roadmaps that I had pre-configured. So I've got one in here for my sales and marketing team. I've got one in here for my dev team. So my dev team will want to see a really detailed version of my roadmap. My exec team probably wants to see a less detailed version of my roadmap. Maybe they would just want to see some high-level objectives and how we're progressing on those. Also something from my public customers as well. They probably don't want to see, I don't want them to see everything, that's for sure. So I can actually pick and choose what they can see. Let me show you how that works. So my public customer roadmap, I'll open that up here. Now, let me just show a little bit more detail in here so you can see what's actually going on behind here. So this is the preview. And you can see that these cards are all marked as public. That's because I'm showing just my public cards, not all my cards, certainly not my internal cards, just the public ones. Now, I'm showing public here. I certainly don't want to tell people I'm showing public, so I could hide that visibility. There you go, and that hides that piece. I could pick and choose what I hide in here, or I could make my life simpler. I could just get a collapsed view. That's a nice preset version that we've given you here. Now here's a version of my roadmap that I'm happy to share to customers. I could save that. I could add a password to it if I wanted to, or I could just leave it open. I'm going to get an embed code. I could embed this in any HTML or WordPress page or wiki page or anything like that. I could use our Confluence app and use this UUID to publish it directly there, or this shareable link. I could just send this to somebody. You could all open this link right now and you'll get access to this shareable roadmap. And this is a public roadmap that only includes the information that I wanted you to see, doesn't include anything else. You can't change anything. You can't see anything that I'm hiding, but it is completely dynamic. So if I go back into my roadmap and I decide to make something that's internal and I decide to make that public, that'll now appear on my public roadmap as something that my customers can see. So that's how the publishing roadmap functionality works. Now, let me show you how ideas work. because this is where product managers end up spending a lot of the time. A lot of people come to ProdPad because they're looking to make a great roadmap. And that makes sense because a roadmap is often what we think of as the output of product managers, right? This is what we do. But in reality, we actually spend our time managing ideas, managing this influx of ideas, suggestions, insight, feedback, all this stuff from people, and then trying to figure out where it fits in the roadmap. And so we give you a lot of tools for digging in, understanding what's in your backlog, and taking the weight off to make it a lot easier for you so that you can focus on actually prioritizing at the problem level on your roadmap. And so that you're not having to spend lots and lots of time just digging through and writing specs. So let me show you what's going on in the ideas section. Now, this is what we call an ideas backlog or a product backlog. This is different than a development backlog. A development backlog is something that lives in Jira or Trello or Azure DevOps. It's a dev backlog is basically the list of dev tasks that are ready to go, approved, prioritized, ready for any developer to pick up and work on and know that they're working on the right thing. Your ideas backlog is a list of all the things you could do, all your opportunities, all the stuff you could do. And some of them probably aren't good ideas, right? Some of the stuff you probably won't do. You shouldn't be able to finish your ideas backlog because it means that you're working on some of the wrong stuff. Your job as a product manager essentially is to figure out which of these things are the right things and to put them on the roadmap. And the roadmap will help you with that, but also this backlog and all the tools in here will help you figure out, again, which of these things to put on the roadmap. So we give you a few different views in here. You've got the list view, which you can treat very much like a spreadsheet. So you can filter and search and sort, like I could sort and say, show me the ideas that have the most feedback from customers. So maybe we want to look at maybe putting this on the roadmap. Or maybe find the ideas that have the most impact. My favorite view is actually the chart view, because what this does, it maps out my ideas by impact and effort. So my high impact, low effort, quick wins sit up here. My time sinks sit down here, and everything else sits somewhere in the middle. The color of the idea shows how recent or fresh the idea is. So the ideas that are bright pink have been updated recently, and the ones that have faded away to gray, you can see have been ignored for some time. And so ProdPad will actually flag this up to you to make sure that you're not ignoring your backlog, to make sure that nothing is dying away in here, to make sure nothing's getting forgotten. So it'll even tell me if there's ideas that have been forgotten, have not been updated recently. So as a product manager, if it's a rainy afternoon, a quiet afternoon, you could probably go through this list of just 31 ideas and just, add a tag, add a business case, add something to it to make sure that, it's not being forgotten. If it's still relevant, then keep it going. If it's not relevant, then close it, push it off to the side, and you can do that. We give you tools to do that. The size of the dot matters as well, because ideas start off as basically like one-liners, right? A lot of times people come up to you saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had this? And it might be a great idea, but it's like the equivalent of a Post-it note stuck to your monitor. It might be a great idea, but it's not ready to go to dev yet. You can't just put that forward to anybody. The ideas that have larger dots have designs and discussions and user stories and functional specs and all sorts of other things behind it. It's like the difference between that Post-it note stuck to your monitor and a folder with a whole bunch of research backing up why it deserves to exist. These ideas are more likely to be successful. So you can see immediately which ideas need more detail as well. Again, these are just 15 ideas here. It's just filtering out and saying, hey, here's a couple ideas that are quick wins that need more detail. Go in and add a business case. Answer the question, what problem are you trying to solve, and what would be the value if you did solve it? Those are two questions that exist in each of these ideas. And if you answer those, the dot will grow a little bit, and it'll help the idea move forward. It'll help you verify if it's actually a good idea or not. And you can actually combine these filters. So, let's say, one of the main problems on your roadmap you've identified is to help you get revenue, right? If revenues become a main driver. So let's try to find you some revenue generating ideas. Here's some revenue generating ideas. And let's find some ideas that are useful for a particular persona. Like here's some ideas from Larry Landlord. There you go. And let's find some ideas that are not yet on the roadmap. And there you are, right? So it's not telling you explicitly which idea to go work on first, but it's making it pretty obvious that you should probably take a look at this idea out of all the ideas in your backlog. Out of everything in here, take a look at this one because it's standing out because it matches those filters, and that's the type of problem that you're looking to solve right now. So it makes it easier to just understand what's in your backlog and how to dig out the interesting nuggets from the rest of it. And you can also look at your ideas in this workflow view. You'll recognize these columns from the drop down and from the statuses that we showed in the roadmap itself. So every idea starts off as a new idea, and then they go through different stages. Again, you can configure these, but you might have things like initial review or vetting, a discovery type phase, design, prototyping. You'll probably have some sort of handover stage where you get things ready for dev. At that point, you would probably press a button and it syncs it with your development tool. As I said, we support things like Jira, Trello, TFS, Pivotal Tracker, Rally, Azure DevOps, all sorts of different tools like that. So whatever you're using, we've got to sync with it. And as it's being synced, once it's actually been synced with those tools, as the developers work on them, it pulls it across automatically. So you'll have a few stages in here where it's synced with the development phases. Now, you might have lots of stages in your development tool. You might have lots of different stages that mean in development. You might choose to show them all in ProdPad, or maybe you just want to simplify it. Create a simplified window for the rest of your team to understand where it is in development. And once it actually hits done, just because the developers say something is done doesn't mean it's done. There's always the chance that there's things to do after that. Like, for example, maybe put it through a beta stage, right? There's this, you got beta, press release and launch. You probably want to contact your customers, measure success, other stages like that, right? And if it is successful, then mark it so. If it wasn't successful, then mark it as a failed experiment. If you decided not to do it, then mark it as such again. And once you've actually moved them to these stages, then that's at the point that you can actually archive them. And that way you're not actually losing the work that you've done here, but you've got the information about what happened along the way. Did it work? Did it not work? And what did you learn? So you can capture all of that in the idea itself. Now let's jump in and take a look at an individual idea. Let's find one that we know has a little bit of information in it. So let's choose one that's got some details. So here's an idea about a Google Maps integration. So I've got a little bit of detail. We've still got the business case to fill out. Now with business case, we're asking some really simple questions, like what problem are you trying to solve and what value would it provide if it were solved? We're not just leaving you with a label like business case, because again, we're trying to make this accessible for the whole team. We're trying to make it easy enough that everybody in the team can help you answer these questions. Your team can pitch in and say whether they like or dislike or are unsure about something. If they have questions, they can jump in and ask questions and at people and everything else, right? So they can jump in and have conversations. If you have questions for them, you can at them and they can jump in and help answer those questions as well. So really easy for your team to jump in and have these conversations, really easy to move it around and change the impact and effort and other details like that. Really easy to connect it to roadmaps, set owners for it, sync it, give it personas, tag it, everything like that. This idea, I'll show you the user stories first. This idea has a couple of user stories associated with it. As a user, I want to do X in order to do Y, acceptance criteria. I can put these user stories on the roadmap and I can push them to development, both together or separately. So you've got different use cases that you might want to use with that. I can add things like functional specs. I can add things like additional notes. I can add things like designs. And these are designs that I can annotate directly and comment directly on. I can pull them in from any number of different tools. So if you're using InVision or Marvel or Sketch or Zeppelin or any one of those popular tools, you can pull in your wireframes from there. And you can pull in additional files as well. So wherever you might be storing additional files, you can pull those in as well. Everything's sourced, pulled into one source in ProdPad so that when it is sent over to development, you've got everything in one place. And here's a little bit of magic for you as well, because you can connect your ideas to customer feedback. So basically what's happening here is, here's an idea, an experiment you might run, a thing that you might do in order to solve a problem on your roadmap, but it's supported by feedback from your customers. Here's some customers who've asked for Google Maps. And specifically, you can actually see what the customer was asking for and what they were trying to do. Like Roy here wanted Google Maps so you could get an idea what the surrounding neighborhood is like. Like maybe the answer is an integration with Google Maps, or maybe there's something else you could do for him, right? So what it allows you to do is understand the context of what the customer wanted, as well as once something's actually done, get back to the original customers, close that loop. So ProdPad allows you to do that. ProdPad will also help you make those connections. So we have something called .bot, and .bot is really, really unique. So .bot pops up in any ideas where they find connections between ideas and feedback. So .bot's coming in here with 10 suggestions. It's found 6 ideas that they think is related. So here's an idea called new maps integration that they think is related to this integration with Google Maps. They're 57% confident, and I can say, yeah, that's related. Good job. They think that this VR system, allowing people to see a virtual walkthrough of the listing is related. And I can say, yeah, that can be related, or maybe that's a duplicate. So I can actually use these to connect up, or I can say, actually, no, that's not related, that's different. It's also connecting feedback. So here's feedback that we've pulled in from various customers whose feedback lives in the feedback section, which I'll jump into in a second. So these are customers who've given us feedback who aren't in this list yet. And if I were to connect one of these, there we go. Let's link to feedback here. There we go. Here's another customer who's asked for feedback, and it's now appeared in here. So thanks, .bot. You've helped me make some connections here. Now, let's jump over to the feedback section itself and see what's going on in there, because this opens up into an area that's really helpful as well. So I've got this customer feedback section, and in here I can see all of the feedback that I've collected from all of my customers, including what companies they're actually connected to. So this is Chris. He works for Acme. Acme is a London-based company. They're relatively large, they're high value to us. I've tagged them as European. I've got a HubSpot link here, and I can see that I've got 3 people who work there, which is great. And I can see that we've got a backlog of 9 things that they've told us about. These might be pieces of feedback that we've picked up from various places. This might be, sales team has entered it. Maybe it was something that came in from our customer feedback portal or the widget. Maybe it was a user test. Maybe it was from a conference we met them at, right? All different places where this might have come in. So here's the feedback itself. Here's all the feedback from all the people who work at Acme. And we've come up with 17 things, 17 ideas of ways that we might solve their problems. And I can see where they sit in the backlog. Some are quick wins, some are not. Some are things that we're just considering. Some are things that we're working on. And turns out some things are in beta and some things are successful. So if I were the customer success rep or support rep for Acme Limited, I would want to let them know, like, hey, do you want to try the beta, or do you want to upgrade your account to try the new bulk editing feature, or whatever needs to happen? So what you can actually see here is that the feedback is coming in from all different sources, and we connect with Zapier, which connects with a huge number of different tools. So whether you're using things like Salesforce or Zendesk or Intercom, whether you want to use our customer feedback portal to pull in feedback, you can set these up and configure them to match your own look and feel, your own branding. Wherever the feedback is coming in, this feedback comes in and sits in your customer feedback section. .bot helps you connect it to ideas, which in turn are essentially experiments that are going to help you understand how you might solve problems that live on your roadmap, which are in turn there to help you meet your goals that you've outlined as part of your objectives. So you can see how everything in ProdPad is tied together to help you prioritize at the problem level and stay focused on your overall business goals. So that is a whirlwind tour of ProdPad. There's a lot more behind the scenes beyond that. I'd be happy to show people more of some of the bits and pieces beyond that, but I'll leave it there. If anybody ever has questions or wants to try ProdPad out, we have a free trial, so you can jump in and try it. You don't need a credit card or anything like that. And pretty much everyone that you speak to on the team is either a product manager or has been a product manager in the past. ProdPad was founded by 2 product people, myself and my co-founder. A lot of the people that we've brought in to build ProdPad either have been past ProdPad users or past product managers. So if you ever need help or have questions, just press on this little button here and you'll be able to reach the team, many of which are actually product people ourselves. So by all means, let us know how we can help. Let us know how you think ProdPad will help you. And we look forward to seeing you around. Thank you very much.